this right here.
Should I just hit the space bar?
Yeah, you can do that. There,
Okay.
space bar and you're good to go.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Loren Ferré, and I'm Chief Business Development Officer for Grupo Ferré Rangel. And I'm going to talk about the case study of our CHP plant with the engineer at my side and tell you the story about a local family working this way. So we're a 100-year-old family business where we are a fourth generation family business. Can you hear me? Oh, it went away.
Oh, did it go back? Let me see. I'm going to get you started.
So I'll go ahead. In the meantime, we've been basically in 7 industries since the early 1900s, and you'll see the industries from iron to cement with the Puerto Rican Cement Company, and more recently, media company and real estate in the United States and in Puerto Rico. So as you can see, we've been through many different types of industries locally and in the mainland. And this is a slide of the different industries that we've been involved with, inevitably, inextricably intertwined to Puerto Rico and its economic and development, right? In all of them, we've faced one challenge, which has been electricity, right? As I was saying, we started with an energy committee actually, that Mariette founded with one of my siblings, dealing with the topic of energy. And in around, I think it was 2014, we started dealing with the solar panels. This is GFR Media. It holds El Nuevo Dia and Primera Hora, our online products, our mailroom, and our printing presses, which are 4 pretty large printers. And in 2014, we started with the topic of the solar panels. So at that point, we were already speaking about the topic of efficiency, right? Not so much necessarily redundancy or resilience, which we will, but efficiency and a greener commitment to the environment. But then again, as we have all heard today and yesterday, Maria hit, right? So the story, think about it, that we were the only entity that was being able to give the world the news about what was going on in Puerto Rico. In all that time, through Maria, our equipment was being used. We had reporters everywhere. And although the people in Puerto Rico could not hear from us, the world did. So it was extremely important for us to be able to do our mission, which was to inform not only the people of Puerto Rico, but the rest of the world. So then at that point, the story was not only about being redundant. We had to, you were talking about 90 days or 100 days without power. We went almost 60 days with generators. And then we realized that as a media company, we just, we couldn't afford not being able to have electricity to be able to inform the people of Puerto Rico. And also all the families that were in the States, the people in the States, in the mainland, knew more about what was going on in Puerto Rico than ourselves. At that point, we became extremely involved in trying to help people get medical attention. We were talking about how 3,000 lives were lost, and we were trying to be part of that solution. So I'll let Mariette tell the story of how we got involved into the CHP plant, and she'll tell the rest of the story.
Thank you, Loren. As Loren has said, we...
Oh, you went.
Okay, that's okay.
As Loren has said, we have, we were working on energy since 2014. As she mentioned, one of the siblings had a committee, and I was part of it. And we were, at that time, looking to reduce the cost of energy, because as people has lived here before, that we know that it was around 24 cents kilowatt hour at that time. And the first thing we did, and that's for solar people here, was to put our solar panels. But that was not enough to maintain the whole facility. So that's why we came along to a CHP, and that's a cogeneration plant that we installed. As Loren was saying, GFR Media is the largest media company in the island. It hubs in Nuevo Día and Primera Hora, but that's part of the whole ecosystem. They have the billboards and digital platforms and even events. It is a set of media, so it's important for us to maintain the electricity. The solution, as I mentioned, combined heated power. And I know some people will say that's not the cleanest one. Yes, it's not, but it's cleaner than what we have right now. We put together a 1.5 megawatt cogeneration plant that is use natural gas, and like we can see it here, it uses natural gas to be the fuel for this engine that is Jen Bucker 1.4 megawatt generator, and we use the heat out of it to produce the chill water for the facility. This solution has reduced the cost of energy in about 30% of what we used to have. It's producing 84% of the whole electricity for the whole buildings. And as you may know, in that facility, we hub as well Veterans Affairs, and we have Core 3, and we have FEMA. So it's a complex right now that it's been generating electricity using natural gas. That has been able to reduce 30% of the carbon emissions. If we use the bunker oil as a reference, and if you use the coal, so it's 50% less carbon emissions. Less voltage fluctuations. That's something else that we do have here, a lot of voltage fluctuations that damage the vast majority of the electronics. And so having less voltage fluctuations, we're having less equipment loss as we go. What are the challenges that we have seen? And I led this project, and right now I work with other customers as well that are trying to to take care or to gain control of their electricity on their facilities. And what I have seen so far around them, supermarket or medical device, as well as media company, and actually a telecom, is that this is an engineering project. So private companies wants to do it, but there gotta be a business case out of it. So it's kind of difficult to get all the engineering background into a business case, but it can be doable. As the vast majority of the projects that we have seen so far, it's difficult for the key decision maker to make the decision based on the engineering itself. It got to be a business solution. Loren, you have the...
So in addition to what Mariette is saying, in terms of the business side, and as business owners, we've had the need of other business owners locally to tell the story, to tell how it was done, for people to find out about our project. We've had more than 30 visits to the CHP plant of business owners trying to understand how it is done and how we manage to execute the plan and the plant. So a platform of collaboration and of sharing knowledge would promote more projects like this to go on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we go back, may I ask if the audience has a question?
Definitely, yes.
So before they go back to their seats, any questions that you might have about the project that they did or the concept they have of creating a greater understanding of these projects for other private owners? Yes, Marcel, let me get you a microphone. It's coming.
And so maybe it was in the slide, but I didn't catch it. But how much was the cost per kilowatt hour now with the plant? Because that way we have a good way to compare
Yes.
from the grid and from, because I know CHP
Yeah.
are really good at.
Yeah, for the grid, at the time that we made the decision was 20 cents. And now we are having 12 cents per kilowatt hour. But if you look at as of today, the 30% that I mentioned is as of today, the 23 cents versus the 12 cents per kilowatt hour. And by the way, Marcel, I love your collaboration. So if you need a project manager on the project, I will help you out.
Hi, my name is Nathaniel with Ameresco. We are an energy services company. I really applaud what you guys did. Couple of questions, actually. Is the plant physically located behind the meter, so to speak?
The plant actually is grid tied.
So understood, you run parallel to the grid, but
Yes.
in terms of, did you have to change the interconnection at the facility? And how long
Actually, no. We did have to make an upgrade of, to install PT and CTs and everything. All the protections had to be there. But that was it. We interconnect in our main switchgear, and that was the only thing we have to do to interconnect. But we cannot export, and that's an issue.
Understood. Do you physically own the asset, or did you use a PPA?
We physically own the asset. We didn't do a PPA.
Any reason why you chose to own the asset? Or was
We did own the asset because when we did the comparison, it was giving us more savings than anything else.
Sure. So if you can have the upfront capital, it's always better to own the asset.
Definitely.
But again, I applaud what you folks did, and I'd like to see a lot more of that here in Puerto Rico.
Awesome.
Any other questions? Please, Mike.
Yeah, I'm just curious why you guys went with CHP rather than like solar and storage, and if you factored in potential future carbon taxes and carbon costs
Okay.
into your cost analysis.
First of all, as you saw, we did solar first. It's just that there was not enough rooftop to get all the electricity that you need for the press to run at night. Actually, this is doing a base load because the peak was just a few hours of the 24 hours, so we just went for the base load. The other question you mentioned is the tax on carbon reduction or something?
Yeah. So, well, yeah,
What was the question?
Yeah, you could have, you can use energy storage to provide more of a base load solution even with solar.
Well, the thing is, the solar right now, we are consuming everything. We're not doing net metering or anything. So there is no extra energy to store. We use the rooftop as much as possible. We are using all the electricity in our facility, and we still need more. So that's why we went to CHP as a second step.
Okay. And the second question was, did you factor in potential future costs? So the cost of carbon is still not universally agreed globally yet, but the international community is moving in that direction.
Okay.
And so it'll, it's going to, once those either carbon taxes or carbon credits and emission standards come into play, it's a significant additional cost having a carbon-based generation type.
Yeah, I understand. The thing is, right now, if you compare, I know that we're moving from the utility to our site, the carbon generation, if that's what you mean. But at the long run, we are reducing the carbon footprint because in the island, we are using more bunker oil and coal and less. We are started using the LNG, but it's less the amount of energy that we're using on LNG. So no, we don't have those tax, future tax embedded in the analysis. But at the same time, you know, for us, we're cleaner as a company than using the utility right now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, one more question over here.
Yeah, Ramon Sánchez from ICSE. Just a suggestion, it's very innovative, and I think you should go and strive for ESG projection, because it would be very good for the community, for the business community, to hear your ESG points and how you are establishing a reference for ESG businesses in Puerto Rico. We are doing preliminary work into that area, and this kind of project is excellent for that. So you make your own statement and publish it.
Yeah, we normally don't publish ourselves.
No,
But thank you. Yeah, I know.
Tool for the business community.
And actually,
You are actually making
yes,
it.
we are. We are, and actually, as Loren mentioned, we have had more than 30 business owners coming to our site, and actually large, pharmaceuticals. I'm telling you, large pharmaceuticals have come to see how things are working properly, because since day one that we turn on everything, we have not stopped. And that's not normal in a project like this, and people have had some issues or roadblocks. But in our case, since we turn on everything and we commission everything and we start, the LNG, the CHP plant totally has not stopped. So it has been good for us, but it's like a really, really, really good suggestion.
Before you go, Loren, I've had this question for you, just thinking through what we heard from Mariette about culture and why it's important in creating a spirit that matches the moment for Puerto Rico in terms of where we need to go to protect lives in the future and how we need to collaborate more. Being in this world of media, what do you think are the messages that would resonate most to bring people together on these issues?
That's a great and difficult question, but immediately I would say that education meaning that there's a lack of knowledge in the topic, education about how to use the funds. Right? We publish every day information about the funds coming in, but business operators are operating their businesses, and sometimes you need somebody to digest the information and see how it's applicable to a media company or a small mom and pop shop or medium size. So one is information, discerning the information, how to access it. Obviously you need advice. You don't want to have somebody do the job for you, because I know there's a paperwork and things to be done, but it just needs to be distilled in a clear way, the amount of information that's out there.
That reminds me this morning when Manuel Lavoy talked about, and actually I think he did a fabulous job of really distilling the information and the flow of funding. And he talked about his concern on disinformation and how does he help people realize he's trying to get a message of information that's so valuable and important. That made me think that, well, having your motivation be transparent so people understand you're coming from a place of caring to make something better,
Right.
helps people feel less mistrustful about, is it really information or is it a position you're trying to feed me, versus you're telling me something that is for my well-being, that you care about my ability to not be burdened with energy costs, that you care my ability to be more resilient.
Yeah. So anything, we as a company and as a local business, we want to be a local GPS help. People need to navigate the local landscape. And they need help in that sense. And we want to partner with those entities that have the well-being of the future of Puerto Rico here and the generations of the 5 million Puerto Ricans that are in the mainland. We want to be the partner of choice in that sense.
Yes, yesterday there was a group that talked about as a suggestion, doing some type of a competitive festival to demonstrate how you can be in this together. Is there any experience that you've had of a social event in Puerto Rico that has brought people together in a way that could be a model to how we could do this around energy? I know I'm asking a lot of questions.
Well, if you're from here, and I saw some hands raised, anything, I mean, there are different categories, but anything that had to do with sports, brings us together, and obviously music, but it's a sense of ownership and pride of who we are as people. So if in that sense, if we could translate how this becomes a flag for a national pride, right? How solving the energy issue is not only about energy, it's about us as people and the future. I think you could work around that.
Okay, I like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Thank you so much.
All right. Next up, we have Erik Anderson, Senior Project Developer with Ameresco. Welcome, Erik.
Perfect. Thank you. Good afternoon. I realize I'm one of the last speakers before the conclusion of the day, so I'll try to keep to my allotted 8 minutes. Just before we get started, I want to say that Puerto Rico holds a special place in my heart. My grandmother is from Puerto Rico, so it's great to see so many people down here focused on improving the situation and working on infrastructure and how to improve lives and work on equity and resiliency. So just briefly, Ameresco, we are a energy services company. We develop renewable energy projects, everything from solar, storage. We do landfill gas, renewable natural gas, microgrids. We also do a lot of work in the energy efficiency space. I'm in the generation side, but we have 1,000 employees across North America and Europe focused on all areas of energy services. So we have almost 300 megawatts of assets that we own ourselves. We like to own our own assets, but we also develop third-party projects. We're currently constructing a 1.2 gigawatt-hour storage project for SoCal Edison, located at 3 substations in Los Angeles to help out their infrastructure and prevent wildfires. So that project should be operational by the end of the summer. And we work within all industries. So we have 8,000 customers in the C&I space, utilities, municipalities, higher ed, hospitals, airports. So anyone that uses energy, we work with them to try to reduce costs and ultimately improve their energy performance. So the thing I wanted to talk about today is microgrids. So Puerto Rico has some very aggressive goals on carbon reduction. We've talked about this, the past couple of days. So 100% renewable energy by 2050, very similar to, what other states and cities are doing, all of the host cities that AEG does, where AEG has conferences, similar types of goals, very strong aspirations. So it's great to see that Puerto Rico is moving in that direction. PREPA and LUMA working to procure close to 4 gigawatts of renewable energy, making some great progress there, and storage is going to be a critical component of that to maintain the supply and the demand. But one thing that I think could assist probably more with, could help with the resiliency and the infrastructure is microgrids. Whether it's small community scale microgrids or microgrids for larger consumers. Supply the demand where it's actually being used. So what I wanted to go through here was just to go through the three factors that we're trying to address here: infrastructure, resiliency, and equity, and how microgrids can support that and get us to a place of improvement. So the cost for microgrids is generally less than the cost to build transmission lines across the island, maintain distribution systems. In the event of a critical disaster, the cost to repair it is significantly less. So that is a benefit that that microgrids can bring to improve the overall infrastructure. Resiliency. We have microgrids in the States. We do a lot of microgrids at U.S. military bases, and the purpose there is for them to really get a sense for how you can implement these microgrids so they can deploy them in bases overseas. But there's several circumstances where event comes through, the utility grid, the grid is down, and we're able to return to service almost immediately, while the rest of the utility is out and dark. And we're able to supply our customers, through those periods. And then from an equity standpoint, microgrids, we do, some of the smaller community microgrids connecting police stations and community centers and hospitals just to be able to utilize electricity when the grid goes down. They're still able to respond to emergencies. Can be used for emergency shelters during weather events. And then if you're able to utilize renewable energy, CHPs are one mode of generation that we use in some of our microgrids, but the ones that are using solar and storage, it's usually a lower cost than electricity from the grid. So we've been talking about lower energy costs, so that's one way to get there. And then overall, improved air quality and reduced pollution. So I think one of the challenges, and we face this in the mainland with microgrids and all kinds of generation projects, is the interconnection process and the general regulatory framework. So PREB's done a great job in Puerto Rico laying out the microgrid regulations. It's a good framework for how microgrids can be developed, and it gives some guidance around microgrids. But the interconnection, the permitting process is still, in my mind, a challenge. We've looked at microgrids in Puerto Rico, and the time from contract execution to operations, minimum 3 years. It's going to take a year to get it permitted, and then a year and a half, 2 years for construction. So I mean, we're looking at 2025. We need to be at 40% renewable energy by 2025. So if there's a means to streamline the process and have it more standardized, I think that would really accelerate the deployment of microgrids locally. And then standby electricity costs. So that's another significant challenge and cost that needs to be considered. So and more, I think, so for the larger industrial users. So if you have a call it a 10 megawatt load, and if you want to maintain connected to the grid, you're going to pay a couple $1 million a year just to maintain that connection, to supply power during interruptions when the unit's down, very infrequently, but just to have access to the grid, there's a significant cost. And we were talking this morning about the RSA as well, which could be another rate that would be included onto to the cost of energy. So that's a cost that's going to add to local generation. So the alternative there is to create an islanded mode system. So you could disconnect from the grid. You avoid some of those costs, but then you need to build in additional resiliency or redundancy. So you're looking at an N+1, N+2 type of design. There's additional costs associated with that. But then you lose out on all the community benefits that microgrids do bring because you're not able to export power back to the grid. And in the last presentation, I think having generation connected to the grid, one of the best benefits is to be able to bring it back out to supply the local community in the event of some kind of disruption. So, the best means in my mind for microgrid is keep it connected to the grid, and it can be utilized to supply the community. But again, the cost is a real challenge to overcome. And I think that I would expect that there's considerations for how to address that, but right now that's my understanding of the situation. So my final statement regarding critical infrastructure, equity, and resiliency, I feel that a critical obstacle that must be collaboratively overcome is the lack of a streamlined process to support the widespread development and deployment of microgrids. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna put you all to work before we go to our reception, just like yesterday. On the other side of this challenge we're about to do, you'll have an opportunity for a fun evening of music, of food, and of rum. But before we do that, we need to earn it through some work. So what I'd like you to do at your tables right now is we're gonna do a change up at the tables to spread people around. So why don't you go on, and I'm looking